Welcome to another episode of the No Matter What podcast. My name is Sina.
I'm Rafa.
My name is Hollis.
How are you, Hollis?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
It's so fuck saying Hollis. I gotta say, how are you, my beautiful wife?
See, there we go.
Hello,
That
my
was-
love.
question.
How was your day today?
My day was pretty good.
Yeah?
Same old, same old.
Any eventful stuff happen with our kids?
Nothing major aside from Layla not sleeping super well last night, which means that I didn't sleep super well last night, but we will overcome.
Did you sleep, Sina?
It's not about what I did last night, okay? Today, this time, this second is about her, okay?
Okay, that's right.
So please, all eyes off me.
That's going to be tough, but I will try my very best.
Yeah, please do.
All right. Sorry.
So have you been to treatment before?
I have been to treatment. I went to treatment twice, and they were both actually the same treatment facility. So really, it was kind of like 2 trips, same place.
How was it?
I went to a very high-end treatment center back in 2012. I went for initially in March of 2012, and I was there for I think about almost 3 months, and I left, and I came back within like 2 months. So the time that I was there, I was out quickly and went back. So it was not only like the same staff, it was the same clients, and it was just pretty demoralizing to go back to the same place but looking, because you start to clean up really good. People come into treatment, you're tore up, you feel terrible. I felt terrible. I was super 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 sick. I will never forget how sick I was and what that experience was like, and what it felt like viscerally to be in withdrawal for that length of time. The first time I was so sick, and I hated it, and I never wanted to feel like that again. But suddenly, I always say that the disease of addiction is like a form of amnesia, because you start to forget all the bad stuff and you only remember like the good stuff. So I, forgot what that was like. And the next thing I knew, I was out there again, I was using again. And I went back to the same facility with the same staff and like a lot of the same clients. And I went from looking pretty good at like 90 days because we cleaned up pretty well to looking like real bad again. And it was, pretty humiliating.
So, what was your expectations on treatment when you first went compared to the second time you went?
I knew what treatment would be pretty much. I'd actually toured that treatment center a year before, not for me, but my grandmother has a large amount of time sober, and she was a speaker at that facility, and I went as her guest when I was using to hear her speak at that facility.
Were you high when you were there?
Of course I was high when I was there. I was always high. It might have been 2 years, but it was in the time right before I got clean. I had gone out to see her speak at their, I guess they had a special speaker thing. And I remember them having that when I was there. Occasionally they would bring in someone special and they would do like a special, I don't know. It feels like you're at summer camp and college at the same time, or it did at the place that I was at, the facility that I went to. I went to like sort of an old standard, one of the big name,
Mm-hmm. So it's good that you said that your grandmother has a good significant amount sober.
Yes.
How was that for you? I mean, as far as like when you're growing up and you seen that, did you say like I'm not gonna be like that, or how was it for you when you
Well, actually, most of my family have been in and out of recovery. My parents met because they both went to the same treatment center. But they both went to the same facility. My father had about 18 months and was going back to do a tune-up, and my mother had just graduated out of their inpatient program and had gone to a halfway house, or one of those sort of facilities that was also, I don't know if it was owned by them or if they were like affiliated or something, but they went to a alumni thing for the treatment center that they had both gone to, and that's where they met. So I'm literally a product of treatment, like as a human being and also as a person in recovery. So I always knew what treatment was. My grandmother's very open with her story. My uncles have been in recovery. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, like it's very common in our family. So I sort of always knew what it was. I always knew what addiction was. I always knew that might have it. Um, and as a young kid, I really used to say like, "Oh, I'm never gonna be like that."
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm never gonna be an addict. I'm never gonna use drugs. Like drugs are for losers. And I didn't want to be,
I
you
think
know.
I think that's what we all did, man.
Yes,
And
it's
in
exactly.
I think it was elementary school or middle school. I was a part of the Dare Club,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like yes, and
No, you
then
weren't. I
yeah,
was too. I swear to God. Oh my God, it's so funny.
and
I was.
then now it's I get it. Yeah,
I think it
Uh,
was a product of our generation. Like they used to come into our schools and they would be like, "Don't do weed." And we were like, "Okay," you know?
and we would look at them now when we were using, and be like
uh,
fucking
that
losers.
is
Mhm.
so crazy. Yeah, the Dare program. I remember that. I even got up in the auditorium and sang a song to like the person that was running the Dare program. It was all of us as a
You
group.
sing a song?
Yeah, we did. It
I
was
would pay
it was
money.
it
I
was
would pay so much money to see
there's
that.
no footage out
Damn.
there. There is no footage out there. No.
So talk about your last treatment stay.
So my last day in treatment, um, I pretty much knew that I could no longer kind of get away with it. I knew that I was an addict even when I was using. It was pretty obvious to me. I know where I come from. I have all the environmental factors. I have all of the genetic factors, and I use, like an addict. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't think it was that bad as long as I wasn't doing certain things, right? And if I wasn't using the substances that my mom used, then I wasn't an addict, right? Like
Of
if I wasn't
course.
smoking crack, then I wasn't an addict. But I could shoot heroin because that's different, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and my last run, I think, really showed me that it doesn't matter like what I put into my system, I end up in a really bad position. So I think what that treatment stay was hard for me because I knew that it was over and I was furious. Like I was so upset that I couldn't like talk my way out of, schmooze my way out of being an addict, that I couldn't sort of like placate the people at the facility. Because the first time that I went, my plan was I'm going to do the right things and say all the right things to all of my counselors and get everybody off my back. I'm going to look the part, play the part. I'm going to like do what I always do, which is sort of like charm and sweet talk these people into telling my family that I'm doing well so that I can go home and I won't do hard drugs anymore because that's the problem. I'll just smoke weed and drink and I'll be good, right? Because you know, I'm not an addict like my parents. I'm like different and I can, I'm young. I was only 24 when I got clean. So I thought, I still have like I want to still be able to
Yeah.
party. I still want to be
I
able to
still
go
got time.
out, right? Like I can still smoke weed and drink.
Yeah, I
It's
could get
not
high
like
like a lady.
yeah, exactly, I can it's gonna be fine. So I went into that treatment stay sort of like, I'll be really compliant, I'll do whatever they say, just sort of like yesing everyone to death, which is what I've done my whole life, just like bullshitting my way through it, right? And I knew when I went in the second time that like I couldn't just bullshit my way through it, and I was miserable. I was so miserable, and they actually let me leave early. It's supposed to be a 90-day program, and about 60 days in, they're like, you can leave because I was just so badly behaved. I would smoke where I wasn't supposed to. I was always like in the boys' dorm. I was always doing some shit that I wasn't supposed to be doing going to. I like wouldn't participate in groups. I was like very much they didn't like they wanted to just like basically release me. They're like, okay, you're done. Like you can go to the
Your
sober
next
living
phase.
early because you're just the worst. I used to have the staff tell me like, you're gonna relapse and die because like you're so not willing to do anything.
So at what point did you have that moment of clarity that you say, you know what, I need to change my life? Was it after you left that treatment facility and they said, go on and go to sober living and good luck?
I knew it there. I had that moment when I was in the office talking to the nurse when I came back in and I was checking back into detox. I knew that I needed to change my life. I just um I didn't like doing what I was told. My whole thing was I was like, I'm not using, like I should be able to like not follow these rules because I typically don't like being told what to do. Ask my husband. I still don't like being told what to do, right? It's very difficult.
I plead the fifth. Smart man.
And they wanted me to go to these groups and do all this stuff. And I was like, I have to smoke here. You have to follow all these rules. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that. We had to smoke uh, standing up outside, like at a certain place. You weren't allowed to sit down. And I was like, basically, like didn't want to follow any of those things. I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I was like, I'm not using. And that should be good enough. But I knew I needed to change my life. I had this nurse who was incredible. And she looked at me when I checked back in because I had run away like with some guy that I met there, right? And when I checked back in, she looked at me and she was like, "You get to have all the fun you want, do whatever you want in life. You can do whatever you want, go wherever you want, be with whoever you want. You never, ever, ever let anyone, especially a man, take you out again. Like never, ever, ever use over anybody." And I knew in that moment that like she was right. And I could never, ever, ever let another situation in my life, another person, place, or thing lead me to get high again because I knew that my life was going to look like it did at the end of my last run, which was terrible.
Okay, we'll talk about your last one.
Yeah, what I was going to say, was that the
That's what I'm trying to get
yeah.
at because I know your story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your last run.
Okay, so my last run, the treatment center that I went to is in the desert, is way out in Palm Desert, and I had this guy and I had gone maybe 2 towns over. We're like way out in Palm Desert. He's a Canadian citizen. I am not from California originally, so I didn't know anyone. He didn't know anyone. I didn't even take my phone because I was afraid that like if I went and talked to the people at the rehab that had my phone, because back when I went, you weren't allowed to have your phone. Which I think it's different these days. But back when I went, you weren't allowed to have your phone.
It's definitely different.
So I didn't want to go get my phone because I was afraid they would convince me to stay. So we just called a taxi in the middle of the night and just literally ran away like a bunch of children, right? And my last run was I took a half of a pill, right? Like some kind of painkiller because the guy that I was with relapsed first and he said he had tooth pain, right? And he was like, "Oh, here, do you want half one of these? Do you want half of one of these?" And I was like, "Sure. I will take one." And I didn't think of that as a relapse at the time because what I thought using was
Your drug of choice.
dope,
Yeah.
right? I thought using was, smoking meth, smoking like there were certain things that I thought of as using, but to me, I had used prescription drugs a lot. And but I didn't think of that as using, right? Like mine was, like hard drugs, like hard illicit narcotics. And as long as I wasn't doing that, I figured it would be fine, right? So I took like a half of a pill, and the next thing you know, I'm asking the knotted out homeless dude next to the dumpster in the CVS parking lot where he got his dope from. I literally went and found this guy because the guy that I was with was, I found the empty foil in his back pocket and an empty cigarette box, but he was out, right? And so I was like, well, we obviously have to get more. And like that's how fast it went for me. It was just like that. Like I put something in my system and then I was off to the races, So by the time that we got to the point where we ran out of money and ran out of
Resources,
people we could manipulate, like, $100 we could get from somewhere. Our families knew, everyone was kind of like, right?
burned all your bridges.
Just kind of like really played ourselves out, right? By the time we got to that point, we were in like a motel. It was 126 degrees because it was July in Palm Springs. And it was miserable. Like I remember just being like, this is the most miserable thing I've ever felt. I never want to feel like this again. I never want to feel like this again. It was very desperate. And I knew that something had to change and that I didn't want to feel like that again.
So is that when you made the decision to go back to the treatment facility?
Yeah. Actually, my mom is an addict.
Shout out to mom. Mama Dukes, I love
My
you.
mom is also an addict. My mom is an addict in recovery at this point, but she was not in recovery at that point. And she's been in and out for my life. She's been in for a long time now. But she came from all the way from way farther out. She drove like a couple hours to come pick me up and take you back to treatment. And that was a big deal. That was really helpful for me. She came and pulled me out of that motel room I was in, and
While she was high, right?
while she was high, while she was using, she did me the favor of helping me get clean, so that I could return the favor years later and help her get clean.
Wow. Wow. Speak on that a little bit. That right there is recovering at whole right there. Like, I mean, golly, speak on that.
So, my parents were both addicts, like I said, and met, the way that they met, and were both in a 12-step fellowship when I was a kid. And my father relapsed and committed suicide when I was 4, and my mother,
We're getting
where they're going.
popular.
And my mother was in and out of recovery for most of my life. So my father relapsed, committed suicide when I was 4, and my mother was in and out and in and out. And she would get arrested, or she would go to treatment, or she would, whatever it was. And I was used to that. We lived, you know, we lived with a dealer. We had all those sorts of things. Um, we had a very interesting life. And then there were times when she would get herself together and she would do really, really well. And it was kind of in and out, right? So um, I knew what that all looked like. And when I got clean, she was the one that picked me up. She knew what it was like because she'd been so many times. She'd been to treatment so many times, and she knew what it was like to be at the end of your rope and to be like need to get clean. She wasn't ready to do that in her. I was like joking with her in the car, like maybe we can get like a 2-for-1 discount. And she was like, enjoy, like goodbye. No.
Absolutely not.
And
ready.
she came to my family week, and she came to my family week. She was like taken Dilaudid. She was. She had she has her own stuff, right? And she had her own addiction and her own past, but she understood what it felt like to need help. And I think it was probably really hard for her to see me like that, knowing the history that she and I had of, us using together and us running together and all of that. And then when I had about, 7 years clean, so she went in and out in my early recovery. I have a son from my early recovery. And when he was about to be born, I told her that she would have to not be using if she was going to be in his life. And she told me that that wasn't going to happen. And she actually didn't get to meet him until he was 18 months old because she just couldn't. I was like, I can't have him around this. Right. And then she pulled us together for a while, and we went out to meet her one day because I'd heard a friend of mine talking about how we don't give up on the people that we love around here, right? We don't give up on people. And I remembered, it stuck with me, and not that I'd ever given up on her, but I thought, okay, maybe now's a good time. And I went to see her, and we saw her, we had a relationship for a little bit, and then they went south again, and she wasn't doing as well again. And basically I had to make the decision that I couldn't see her with my son until she could get a year sober. I told her, I can't have him around this. I can't have you using in our house or using around him. He deserves better than this. And in order to protect him, I said, when you get your year, we'll come give you your coin or your cake or your medallion or however they do it in the fellowship that you're in, or however you want to celebrate. But whatever that looks like for you, we will come see you once you have a year. And when she had a year, I got to fly out with my son and my grandmother and go give her medallion at her meeting.
Wow. See, that's I would be lying if I was to say that as you're saying that I'm not sitting here and thinking about my dad. Because he's one of us, and that's why I keep that saying. It seems like because I always say okay, I'm gonna unblock him, and he reaches out, and then because I've had a lot of friends before I moved back down here that a lot of their fathers were passing away, and the conversations that I had with them about them missing their dads kind of made me feel like okay, to be completely 100% honest, I would love to have a relationship with my dad. I understand, for me, I still feel like the little boy that still wants his dad around, you know. So for him to be not in my life or not even in my son's life, that shit still it bugs me, you know. But at some point, I had to put that boundary up, and I have to be like, I got to be okay with being okay that you're not in my life, you know. But for the just, you know, the last reading of the meetings, you know, I that's the one person I'm definitely praying for to be in the rooms, whether it's that fellowship or a fellowship. Just get it. You know, so as you were saying that I ain't gonna lie, I was thinking about my dad.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of us have because, addiction
Don't
as we
listen.
know it is a family disease and it's something that runs in
Yeah.
families and very often where there's one of us, there's many of us. And that's not true for everyone. I know a lot of people, that are the only addict in their family, but for the most part, where there's one of us, there's more of us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have to figure out how to deal with that. How do we deal with people in our lives that are still using when we're in recovery?
Because
Uh,
I also, I mean, and I don't mean to keep talking about this section, but like there was times where he hated it. Like he was like, dude, you're like a fucking quitter. Like, oh, you're a fucking pussy and this and that. But then there's times where he wasn't drinking and he'll be asking me. So it's like I know that part of him, like it's in there, you know, and I just constantly pray that sooner or later he gets it. But I don't think he will, because for him, it's money, property, and prestige for him. Like he thinks everything's okay, like I have businesses, I have homes. I don't need that. Like I'm good. No, you're not. You
Listen, I
know?
really did not think my mom was gonna get it. I really did not. You guys can have her on here and interview her a different time, but I really was like, when I made that decision, I had to be okay with the fact that, like, maybe I would never see her again, and it hurt my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
But I knew that it's the choice that I had to make, and in doing so, I stopped trying to make her. I stopped trying to force her. I stopped, harassing her. I used to send people out to look for her. I used to, do all that stuff, be calling her, have other people call her, just harass her to try to get her to do what I wanted her to do, right? Which was to get sober again. And what I had to do was accept the fact that she was doing what she was doing, and I have no control over that, and just let it go.
Yeah. At some point it's let go and let God.
And it wasn't until I was able to like fully let it go and just tell her, like, listen, I love you, but I can't watch you kill yourself.
Yeah.
So how has recovery been for you?
Recovery is the greatest thing I've ever done with my life.
How much time do you have?
I have 13 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I never thought I would get 13 days, let alone 13 years. I was young when I got here, when I got into recovery, and I've done most of my adult life has been, you know, without using. And it's the best decision that I ever made was to stop using and to stay stopped.
How was it in the beginning?
I found the beginning kind of exhilarating. I'm not gonna lie. There's like a
There's
big
some truth to, yeah.
rush, you
Yes.
know? There's a big rush that comes with I remember the very, very beginning, like I talked about briefly, um, detoxing in rehab was horrible. I was sicker than I've ever been in my life. I remember sitting sort of like Kenny in South Park with like my hoodie just pulled, the strings pulled all the way like this. So like all you could see was this much of my face with my, hugging my knees to my chest, like rocking back and forth because I was so, so sick. And it didn't matter that they gave me medication for it. I threw that up. I was just so, so sick. I couldn't eat anything. Um, I woke up the first day in rehab with this lady watching me because they put me on suicide watch because I took so many pills before I went in because I had a pocket full of pills that I had taken on the airplane, that I forgot to use on the airplane because I also did a bunch before I got on the airplane. So when I got to where they were going to take me to treatment, I just took them all because I didn't want them to take them from me because those were my drugs, right? And that's just the way that I use. And they were like, "Oh, well, you tried to kill yourself." I'm like, "I actually didn't really actively try to kill myself. That's how I use. Was just take a handful of this, a handful of that. I never really thought about it to that extent. Like, oh, it could have killed me. Like, and so I had this lady watching me, and I was so sick. So I'm like throwing up with some lady watching me. It was horrible, right? Um, so then when I felt better and I wasn't sick anymore, right? And I started to feel a little better and suddenly like, I wasn't dope sick, and the track mark started to heal up, and it was nice out, and I got to like feel the sun on my face, which I hadn't done in a really long time, and like, you know, people are funny. You start to hear jokes, you start to laugh, like, and actually have like real experiences with people. And a lot of using drugs towards the end, at least for me, was numbed a lot of all the things I was feeling. But that includes joy. That includes like any kind of happiness, any kind of like mirth. So I really had a great time when I first, and it was up and down, but it was exhilarating to stop using and to feel alive
Mm.
for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, because when we're using, we feel dead.
At the end,
At the end, most definitely.
So actually, I just want to know what, because nowadays, let's speak on this new generation, right? They come in, and as soon as it gets hard, like they're back to what they know best. What gave you that strength to stick it out and see the light at the end of the tunnel?
a grudge. Like I told you, when I was in that treatment facility, I had a couple of, specifically one guy. This one guy was like, "You're never going to make it. You're going to die. Like, we're going to find you dead in a ditch because you don't listen to anyone but yourself and you're going to use and die." This was after I'd relapsed and come back. And I was like, "Oh God, I gotta stay. I gotta stay." And I was so miserable. And he was like, "You don't listen to anybody but yourself. Yourself will, and you're going to die." And I was like, "No, I'm not."
So resentment kept you clean the first time.
Absolutely. And I've outlived that guy.
Same here.
Yeah.
Like I said in episode, I don't know. Episode 1.
Here we go. Check it out.
I said that I think I got clean this
Yeah.
time because someone said, "I bet you can't get a year," and I got a year, and he said, "I bet you can't get 2," and then homeboy relapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the motivation.
Yeah.
I think you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
because for me it was I was at a meeting. And somebody shares that, oh, look at, when they share, oh, look at the person to the left of you. Now look at to the person to the right of you. And then he goes, one of you guys ain't gonna make it. And I remember specifically this guy looking at me like this, and then he looked at me up and down. And he was like, and then I was like, what the hell? I stayed clean that year for that, and to this day, I mean, I don't know where he's at, and I have the time that I am. I'm not saying it out because I do have a relapse in there, but I did stay clean for that most part.
I remember them telling us that these statistics when
Oh,
I was
yeah.
in rehab as well, and they told us it was 3%. 3% of people make it into long-term recovery. And I was like, I know people that have made it into long-term recovery, And for me, like I think to have that example in my grandmother and have somebody that I knew that had very long time recovery, and my grandfather, they both had very long, chunks of time. So I knew that it was possible and I had seen how they did it. And it was really about, for me, making a choice that was what my life was going to look like. It was making a decision to be in recovery and to really wholeheartedly jump in with both feet. Because I've also seen what it looks like when people sort of sit on the fence and dip in and out and have these lives that are sort of like half in, half out. They'll have like a chunk of time and then they'll go out and then they'll get another chunk of time. And I've seen a lot about what that looks like. And to me, it looks hard, man.
So we're gonna touch on this because it's new generation, and I don't want to say I think it's every generation because I know for me too, I was trying to focus on something other than myself when I first got into treatment or into recovery. I wanted to fix on her instead of fix on me. And I heard you touch on it a little bit. How did that work out?
Oh, I love a project. Doesn't everybody love a project?
Oh, we got a lot of them here.
I think my early days
Oh,
of
hey, hold on.
Yeah. No.
Let's talk about this now. We got cameras now, okay? Like,
Yes,
we talk about projects,
that's a
right?
project.
I don't know, man.
Go ahead.
there's something really great about an early recovery because there was always somebody that I could fix, right? And it wasn't always just like someone I was dating. It would be like a friend. I would have like the new girl in the sober living and like we're gonna fix this, right? there were so many things on the outside that I could look at, and there was also so much drama and chaos, and that was
Which we
really
love in the
fun for
beginning.
me to
Oh
focus
yeah.
on in the beginning
Oh
because
yeah. We love that.
yeah, when I came into recovery, I came in through a sort of a traditional 12-step sense. Not everybody does. I know that there's a lot of people that do this in different ways, but I came and I consider myself a member of a 12-step fellowship. Aside from the facility that I went to, I do consider that 12-step fellowship to be like the thing that saved my life. I know that not everybody does that, but the thing that I went to had like the fellowship that I joined. There were a lot of people that were also new, and you would hang out together, and there were people in the house that I was living in, because I was living in a recovery house. So I was really like in an environment that I was living up in Malibu, and it's very famously like just tons and tons of these facilities and tons of these meetings, and that became the world that I was in. And there was so much drama and chaos and like he said she said, and sometimes there'd be like famous people and whatever. It was like really really fun to do. It was exciting. It was we'd get dressed up and go to meetings and like do our hair and do our makeup, and it was something to look forward to. I remember getting dressed up to get every chip that I got, because they have these chip things for different lengths of time that you haven't used for in different fellowships. And I remember I would get all dressed up to go to these things. And
Because you knew you're gonna get a chip and you're gonna walk up and then
yes, and
everybody could
everyone's
see
going to
you.
look at you and you're going to
Yes.
say your name into
Hmm.
this microphone.
Yes.
I know that different people have different feelings about these things, but like, that's what it felt like for me. And there were like these really great big meetings, and they had like lots and lots of people at them. And, it was a time in my life when I was young and I really, really, really wanted to look good, and I really, really wanted people to like me. And I cared a lot about stuff like that. So there was always sort of something to do. And in early recovery, I found a lot of like things to do. Like I said, I had I had a child really, really early on in recovery. I had like a year and a year and like 3 months or something like that when he was born. Um, and that was also like a new interesting thing. So I had that to do. I had like a lot of things that I could focus on, a lot of new different obsessions and things
Oh,
to
yeah. Trust me. Yeah, it was definitely fun in the beginning. But and then at what point did that fun start becoming not fun and started? Because for me, it was not till I started working these steps that we do in our recoveries is that I started focusing on myself, because I found out through working a certain step that I like to focus on the other sex, on females, because I didn't want to focus on me and pinpoint what I need to work on myself. So at what point did that happen for you?
I'm still working on that. And it's not it's distractions, right? There's always something that's out there that can distract you from the main goal, right? I can focus on my husband and what he's doing with his life, or I can focus on
Project.
myself and like, you know, I have like we have a big life, right? Like we have 4 kids.
Yeah.
So I can throw myself
Young
into that.
kids.
I can throw myself into, there's a lot of things to lose myself in. I definitely lost myself in drugs, right? And there's a lot of things that I can lose myself in now that I'm abstinent from drugs. And like I like to think of it as the disease of addiction, right?
Hmm.
Not everybody thinks of it that way, but I think of it as there's like we call it the we call it a disease, right? So there's the disease model, and the fact that theory basically says that it affects every area of our lives, right? And that like this thing that's centered in my brain,
Thinking.
that's part of who I am. It's not something external to me. It's not something waiting in the parking lot or anything. Like you hear people use all
Hmm.
these sort of adages and all these things to sort of describe it, but for me it's something in my brain. It's about, and it's the way that I interact with the world. It's sort of like it's like the way that I view the world. A lot of it's perception, and it's centered in my thinking, um, and therefore I can't really get away from it. So I take it everywhere that I go, and so it's kind of a trick to say like what distracts me from like my recovery and from really getting honest and really like getting into recovery, because I can really distract myself with anything. It doesn't have to be a particular substance or person or like, situation, I can really get obsessed with anything and use that to escape from myself and escape from like the thing that I should be
Well,
doing.
yeah, because we have an addictive personality. So I
Yeah.
mean, it could be anything. Like I know for me, and I know Marianne will watch this later on. She knows I love TV.
Who?
Oh, baby.
Is it season 1 episode?
No, she's episode 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep
check
coming
it
back.
out. Yeah. But she knows and she hates that. But for me, like sometimes I use that, and again, I can just be justifying and rationalizing. But I like to use that because it zens me out sometimes. You know.
And listen, there's nothing that says I don't actually feel any shame in the fact that I'm an addict.
Yeah.
So
No
I don't
way.
think of the fact that like I get, sort of like really into things. Like I don't want to be like, oh, it's a problem that like I can get really into stuff and like really watch a bunch of television and like really fixate on that because it's not a problem unless it's like really causing, and really making my life difficult. It's really causing negative
Unmanageable.
consequences,
Yeah.
right? There are ways that it manifests in my life that cause negative consequences. One of those, of course, the most obvious one was using drugs, right? And I've had many different ways that it's manifested. Smoking cigarettes, vaping. That was really difficult to
Did
put
you
down.
used to vape?
I used to vape and I used to smoke when I
Really?
first got.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
How long?
She's the one that got me. I went from smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day to not smoking.
Yeah.
What kind of, I used to smoke Newports. So.
I used to smoke Parliament Light 100.
Oh my god, the skinny ones?
Yes.
No, like my mom.
Not like skinny, like the
Okay.
long, the
the
ones
blue,
that you
the
can
white and
poke
blue
out of
one.
the back of. Yeah.
The white and blue box. Or yes, my mom used to love those. Always. That's crazy.
Yeah, I did Parliament Light 100s and I smoked and the funny thing is I smoked briefly while I was using, but I quit because it was like drugs or cigarettes and I would rather spend the money on cigarettes. Or on drugs, sorry. When I quit using, I started smoking.
Of course.
Because I didn't know what to do with my hands or myself. I was so uncomfortable all the time. As much as it was exhilarating being clean, I had so many feelings that came up and so many things that I just didn't know how to deal with social situations and with people. And there's this great thing about smoking where you just get to leave the room periodically and no one really questions it. If I walk out of the room to go stand outside and breathe right now, everyone's going to think that I'm furious. But if you're a smoker, you totally
okay.
get to just go stand in the yard and breathe and no one says anything to you about it. So it was a really, really great like outlet for me in early recovery. And that became like my hobby and my obsession and my like newest addiction. And I smoked a lot and I felt a lot that I did feel like a lot of shame about because there's a lot of like stigma around smoking like there is around using drugs. And so I then switched to vaping eventually and I quit so many times. And this was going to be the last time and the last one. And
So when was the last time you actually smoked or vaped? Because I know vaping was the last one.
It was in like March of 2021. I don't even know.
4.5 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah. I quit
remember
when I was pregnant with our daughter with our second eldest.
Our beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
Princess.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
She's going to go to sleep by 9 o'clock tonight.
And yeah, smoking was almost harder to quit than heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah. She got me onto vapes and stopped.
You're like a double of you vape and you get,
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Just call your sponsor.
I used to sleep with that Juul thing. Remember the Juuls? I used to sleep with that thing in my hand.
Be specific. Mango
Juul pods. The way that I was driving around Southern California looking for the last of the mango Juul pods was exactly how I drove around Southern California looking for the last of the blue Oxycontin 80s when they switched the formula. It was exactly the same.
One of my friends told me she used to vape too, and she's one of us, and she stopped vaping, and the most like she simplified it. It's so like she goes, I hate getting up because whenever I get up, I have to make sure I have 2 things in my hand. I'm like, what are those? She goes, my phone and my vape. And if I don't have one or the other, I get pissed. And I was like, so that made you stop vaping? I was like, yeah, because fuck, I don't always have to have 2 things in my hand. And I was like, that sounds stupid. But now I'm like, okay, but she ain't vaping a long time, so it makes sense. And I do. And ever since then, I was like, every time I get up, I'm like, okay, I got them. I mean, yesterday I didn't have no juice. Just like you said right now, driving around. Oh my God. Before I came to work, I was going crazy.
He lost his shit yesterday.
I know the feeling, and that's how I would get. And we were driving, and then they made it illegal, and then we're buying it from like, not so reputable sources
Whoa,
because
whoa, whoa. We.
it became illegal in California to sell the flavored jewel pods or whatever. It was this whole thing. So then I'm driving around asking shady people, like, do you have any of these in the back? Just like I used to do with drugs.
Yeah,
It was
just like
not
we're
any
doing our
different.
addiction.
It wasn't any
It's
different.
like instead of
And
going to the corner, we're going to the vape stores.
exactly. And
Yeah.
there's been a few things in recovery like that, and that's one of them.
You go to the vape store, you got this, and they go, yeah, hold on, we got to go to the back.
They
Give you a little
it's a little box.
laminated
This is
picture.
what we have.
They sort of look at you, try to make sure that you're not a cop,
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't condone vaping.
No.
Okay, so it's time. So basically now it's where shit gets rough, right? How has life been from 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago? I don't know.
How has my life in recovery been now
Yeah.
that I'm not anew?
Yes.
My life has had glorious ups and really low downs. I've had it all. I've had really the full gamut of life. My life is big and beautiful. I met my soulmate in Narcotics Anonymous.
He's all right.
We got married. Oh, I met the love of my life because of recovery. And
Hold on. Wait. How'd you meet your love of your life? Hold on. Let's
project.
talk about.
I met my soulmate. No, actually, not a project. I actually got
I'm so
finished.
tired of you.
I got finished with my very last project, and I was told by my mentor in recovery, my sponsor, if you're not in recovery, we have these things called sponsors, and these people sort of guide you in how to live a life in recovery. And this woman told me that I had to stop dating projects, that I had to stop using human beings as projects. And there was like some specific things that I had to do around that. But, I finally had to stop fix managing and controlling other people and their lives, and which has been difficult. But I met this person years before. I met this guy when he had first come into the fellowship that I'm in, and I remember seeing him around, for years, and he would go in and he would come out, and he was, those people that you saw around. Sometimes he'd look like he was doing well, sometimes he wouldn't, and then he managed to come in and stop using and stay stopped, and he would go to some of the same events and like meetings of 12-step meetings that I went to, and we became friends. And we were friends for years before he asked me out.
Wow.
Yeah. And he asked me out because I had to make we have 12 steps in the 12-step fellowship, and there's a 9th step that talks about making amends when you were wrong. And I actually had to make amends to him about something. And after I made amends to him, he asked me if I would ever consider dating him. And I said that we could start with one date and try that and see how that worked. And there was something, I don't know, something about him. Like, we basically hung out one time, and we've just been hanging out ever. Like, it just never stopped. We hung out one time, and now we're married and we have 4 kids. Like, it was like that.
You guys are married with children.
Yeah. Yes, we are married with many children.
And I must say, man, I think, looking back at it, I think our wedding was the best wedding in 2021. COVID. It was men and women in recovery, our families, and it was just beautiful. Like, back then, during that whole 2021 era, everyone was terrified, scared, and I think still to this day, like people talk about our wedding, and yeah.
Yeah,
4
I
kids.
planned our wedding during COVID. I was 7 months pregnant with our oldest daughter, and We knew that people might be afraid to come because of the pandemic at the time. And so we actually had everyone tested on the way into our wedding, which made everyone feel more comfortable in being there because everyone knew that no one else had COVID
Yeah.
and no one got it, thank gosh. And that was a big deal because we were really afraid, like, to expose like my grandmother is like his mom. We have these elderly people in our families that, of course, we didn't want them to get sick because we wanted to have a wedding, but we had like 135 people outside at an outside venue. We got married in the woods next to our old house
Yeah.
where we used to go hiking with our children in this beautiful meadow underneath this gorgeous trees.
Yeah.
Um,
You didn't get your invite?
No, I didn't.
Shit got lost in the middle.
No,
I don't know what to tell you,
I
dog. That
know.
pigeon or something
Yeah.
didn't reach you.
every
Yeah.
year we talk about how we would change the invite list.
Don't you dare say it right now. Go
But
ahead,
we
dog.
wouldn't change the wedding or anything about it because it was perfect. The food was perfect, the people were perfect, and it was wonderful. We had like the best time. Our wedding was beautiful.
No, I'd say it. Fuck it. I mean, when we stick around for quite some time, like you gain relationships, and the old relationships just smear out.
I mean, the thing about growing and changing in life is, and this is like a human thing, I think, is you grow closer to some people and sometimes you grow further away from other people. And it's just sort of the nature of life and the nature of friendships is like as we grow along and we progress and our family's gotten bigger and our lives have gotten different. The road has changed. It's bumpy sometimes, and sometimes the people around are different. Um,
So obviously, for the viewers and for those that life in recovery has its ups. We talked about it, its highs, and it has its lows.
Yeah.
You know, um, obviously the lows are pretty bad, but and I'm not starting with the no matter what question yet, but like talk about a little bit of the lows, just so people that are seeing this, that are sitting wherever they're sitting, probably getting high right now, I don't know, and they're feeling, like life is just completely over because of whatever they're walking through. Talk about some of your lows that you guys walked through, or that you walked through, and how you got to the other side, because that is a big thing about it. We go through shit. Life ain't always peachy.
when I first got clean, there's step one in the famous 12 steps that we keep talking about. Step one talks about reservations, right? And I had a pretty long list of stuff that if these things happened, I thought maybe I would consider using again, right? Um, and I've walked through most of those clean. I life is
Keeps lifing.
life is life, and part of life is death, and
Yeah.
loss, and loss of relationships, and loss of friends, and loss of you know all sorts of stuff, and change. The first really really hard thing that happened for me in recovery was I tore my ACL and I fractured my tibia skiing. And then the guy that I was dating at the time, real messy, real complicated, was like using and like sleeping with his ex. And like it was a very, very difficult time for me. And so not only did I have like a serious injury and I had to have like surgery to fix it, and I knew I was going to have to take medication, which I didn't want to have to do, and I was terrified, but like this situationship that I was in went sour, and I knew that I couldn't talk to this guy, and it was really really deeply uncomfortable for me. It was a time that I really had to like lean into my program and my circle of people, and actually practice all the stuff that I had learned about. Because I had like 3.5 years, and I had worked a full round of steps, and I had done all these things, and I in the fellowship, and I knew all these people, and I knew how to talk the talk. But it was time to put all that to practice and actually use all of that to keep myself clean in a very difficult, uncomfortable time. And it was not, that was just the first of many. I had to have 4 major surgeries in recovery. I had my knee surgery, I had 2 hip surgeries, I had a back surgery. Um,
Sheesh.
I have had my grandmother, who's like my best friend, die, and my grandfather died. Um, our house burned down. Um, our dog, we had to have his leg removed. This is my dog that I got when I was still using drugs. And I've had this dog for almost 16 years. And I had to make the choice. Katsuna said, you can, whatever you choose, like, I'm with you, whatever, because they basically said we can either he had a huge tumor that we can either take off his leg or we can euthanize him. And somehow that was like one of the most difficult things, one of the most difficult choices. But we chose to remove his leg, and he's luckily thriving with 3 legs, but it was really hard.
That's crazy. That dog is that dog has no words in the world, man. He still goes, hops around, and he does what he does.
Yeah, we've grown to get accustomed to the 3 legs. But I've had friends die around here. I had like my best friend overdose and die around here because she thought, she did what people do, what addicts very often do, and she went and she used some more. It's it's very common, unfortunately.
I had an old timer once tell me, I don't trip out when addicts go back out. Because I trip out when motherfuckers blow candles.
Yeah.
And he said, because that's what we do. The unfortunate, sad part about this program or this thing that we call recovery is that addicts go back out. And the scary thing about it is that we don't know if we can make it back. Like everybody thinks they have another, you know, run in them, or the scary thing is, do you have another recovery in?
I don't know. I've seen people lose so much. I've seen people really, really lose it all. And I think that's one of the most difficult things. Um, I always actually tell my sponsees at this point, I sponsor, I'm lucky enough, honored, blessed to sponsor other people. And I have a bunch of people that I get to take through the steps that help save my life. And what I tell them is if you relapse and die, I am not coming to your funeral because I'm done going to overdose funerals. I'm not doing it anymore. It's a choice that you're making, and I'm choosing to not show up to that funeral
It's
because
hard.
I'm done, man.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done.
It's really difficult. I mean, I think that was probably one of the toughest things I had to do, like getting that phone call. I had a sponsor overdose and die, and I didn't think it was gonna be as hard as it was on me, when a lot of it was obviously sad, of course, but then I felt like I let him down. I felt like I didn't do a good enough job of sponsoring him and guiding him, when I literally worked the third step with him, went home, got an argument, and I got a phone call at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning from his wife saying she found him in the restroom with a needle on his arm. That right there was that shit was tough.
It's sad. It is. It is. It is. And I've mentioned this before. Season 1 episode. I don't know. Um. My first sponsor, man. He said, "Man, you gonna stay if you stay, around here long enough. You're gonna go to a lot of funerals. So best believe get yourself a suit." And that's just how it is. And like we mentioned last time, that they go into pairs of 3s.
Mm-hmm.
They do go in pairs of 3s.
Which is
And
so
it's not just
fun.
overdoses, it's like deaths in general.
In general,
Yeah,
They-
but I'm
in
just
general,
saying
yeah.
our circle, right? Like, that's the people that we know. It's just pairs of 3s,
does go in circles.
and it sucks. It really does. But I don't know.
But in episode 1, I did say
Episode 1, the best episode.
I did not. No, I'm not saying.
Referring to episode 1. Good.
I'm referring to what you said with the whole time in episode 1. You did say, yeah, like that, because he said you get yourself a suit because you're either gonna get buried in it or you're gonna go to a funeral.
That's not episode 1.
I said it.
You said it in episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, I mean, no one told me to buy a suit.
Buy a
I think
dress.
we get different. Listen, we are expected to wear different dresses to different occasions. However, I have simply decided that I am not going to go to any more overdose funerals. I'm really not. I'm done.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like, first of all, the person's not there, right?
Yeah. And it's just weird.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's like I don't like respectfully, I don't wish that on my enemy. You know what I mean? And going, I was enforced, but like I was obligated to go to my my friend's funeral, the one that scholarship me at his halfway house. You know what I mean? And it's not about like, dude, like if it wasn't respectfully, like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. If someone didn't give me that chance and brought me into a structured environment and gave me that push of hope and showed me, the steps, like the tools, I wouldn't be here today. And for me to go to this funeral in a Persian setting with tattoos, and people were just like, "Who the fuck is he?" That made it more uncomfortable than just him. I don't know, man. How do you deal with chaotic situations that happen in your life?
Oh, I thrive in chaos.
100%. I don't.
I am.
Couldn't tell.
I'm very calm in chaos. I'm the kind of person that'll freak out later. Deal with what's present at hand. I'm the kind of person that you want in an emergency. I can remain very calm. I'll freak out over little stuff. Little things happen out of my control, and it's like not an emergency. That'll totally like sometimes throw me through a loop. Like we'll be late to something, and I'll be like, ah. But if there's like a big emergency and like a lot of chaos and a lot of like, I'm really calm. I can get through the situation. I'm really good in an emergency, and then I will freak out later. And luckily, I have a support group of women that I love that get me through the freak out later. And I have methods for how to decompress and how to deal with that later.
Yeah, it's funny. I was sitting here. I'm like, okay, what am I going to ask her next? And then you lead into that. Talk about how important it is to have a core group of women in your life. I mean, because honestly, I don't think we talk about that enough. Like in general, or in recovery, or because initially, like we talked about it earlier, like we love the chaos, we love the drama when we first get here, right? Like I wanted everybody to know me. I wanted to be part of all the cheese, all the gossip, But as we get older in recovery, or just in recovery, because I'm older in life than both of you guys. So, but in treatment or in recovery, like how did that transition from like wanting like everybody to just having a core group of women that you could call when something like that happens?
So when I first came in, I was young when I stopped using. I was 24, and so I've really developed like as a human being. Most of my real, adult stuff has been, while I've been in recovery. And when I was young, I lived by that sort of like BS that so many of us live by, that like, women always say, we always tell each other that like, women are more drama and we're friends with guys because they're simpler and like there's no drama and like whatever, which is total bullshit. But men are easier. Y'all are easier to manipulate, And I had a hard time with female friendships, or so I thought. And it's something that I really had to learn as an adult woman in recovery. And I surround myself, and I'm so lucky and blessed to have like incredible women in my life, and to have learned how to be like a really solid friend. That's a skill that I had to learn.
Hmm.
It's not something that was necessarily taught to me or even modeled for me. Um, in a lot of areas of life, and it's something that is not even necessarily like huge in society. We kind of like women are sort of separated, and like there is gossip, and they do pit us against each other. And to set all of that aside and like really have this strong core group of women that I have to work at. I make sure that I reach out to these people, that I like plan things with these people, that I like feed into these relationships, that I check on them, that I let them know that I'm thinking of them, and that I really cultivate and like grow these relationships with these human beings that I really care about. And these women are the best. Like I have like the coolest, best women in my life.
You do.
They're so rad. Like the coolest women. And they're not all friends with each other. I have a few. They're like some of them are, standalones from. I do have a couple friends from childhood that I'm still really close with, and I hold those people really dear. And I have a few friends from early recovery, and I have newer friends, and I have like different groups. Maybe they're not all friends together. But I have these incredible relationships. It's not all. I don't put everything into one like clique, or we're not exclusive really. We have like lots of other people that we hang out with, and it's not just like one group of people. But I personally put a lot of love and thought and care into my relationships with other women, because it is so important, and it really feeds my spirit. Like I love my husband, and we spend so much of our life together, but they give me something that like he can't
Of
you know
course, of course. I think when I moved back down to LA, I think that was the toughest thing for me.
I bet.
Like, because I had built relationships up in my old area that I've had for 15, 17 years, and spent Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays. I even had friends on my emergency card for school to pick up Jaden if I couldn't be there. And coming down here, I was afraid. I was afraid of that,
Nice.
and this is gonna sound funny as hell, but I Cena plays a big part of my life now. Obviously, sponsor, and it's made the transition a hell of a lot easier, because you got to have that. Even for us men, I think, because a lot of us men are very prideful and we run on ego a lot, and I don't fucking need another man. Fact of the matter is, we do.
That's what life is about.
Mm.
The thing that I've learned in recovery is that like the things that
Get your dirty
matter
hands off.
are the people in your life, the relationships you have with them, and the experiences that you have. And like that's it. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter the stuff that you have, or the prestige, or the amount of money, or like, any of that stuff. It's like the experiences that you have and the people that you get to have them with. That's it. That's what life is. So it's very important to me to like pour into those relationships, because I know at the end of my life, I'm going to look back, and that's what my life is going to be made up of.
Because in the beginning, like honestly, early in recovery, like I know for me, early in recovery, I wanted obviously when I was single, I wanted like the single life, right? I wanted to kick it with guys that were single and that could pull girls and do all this and oh yeah, a good wingman, but not being in that stage no more. Like I don't even want somebody that will co-sign my bullshit. Like I want somebody that's gonna call me on my bullshit. I want somebody that's gonna, dude, I haven't seen you in a meeting in 2 weeks. Where the hell are you at? Like what? No, don't you dare go talk to that girl. Marion's gonna fuck you up. Shit like that. Maybe not that I do. I'm just giving an example. Okay, if you're watching this episode later on, but that's the shit I like. I want somebody that's gonna call me on my shit.
Of course.
Um,
Call me on your shit.
what would you say to a viewer that is struggling right now and feels hopeless?
If you're struggling and using, I would really suggest that you consider reaching out and getting help, because I remember what it's like to feel hopeless, to feel Like the only thing left for you is death, and to feel like you don't belong on this planet anymore. I remember what it feels like to wish and hope for death, um, and to have nothing to look forward to, and to hate yourself and the rest of the world with it. I knew that stopping using was a gamble, and I wasn't sure that it was going to make me feel better. Um, but I figured, if that didn't work out, I could always kill myself later, right? Because I was so at the end of my using, it was so bad that it was just like, every hit I took, it was like, please just end all of this. Maybe this will be the one, and I won't have to wake up tomorrow, right? And if you're hopeless and you feel like there's nothing left for you on this earth, I would hope that you would give recovery a chance.
Hmm.
And if you are in recovery and you feel hopeless and you think, maybe there's nothing left for me in this world, I would hope that you would make one more phone call or be willing to reach out to one more person. And, I would remind you that feelings are temporary. You're not going to feel like this forever. A lot of people make a very temporary feeling into a permanent choice, right?
Permanent decision.
I know a lot of people that have killed themselves around here. And I know a lot of people that have attempted. And, feelings change. I don't feel, I really thought that I would actually feel my feelings forever. I thought they would sort of consume me if I felt them. I thought maybe I would just be sad forever if I truly let the feeling of sadness overcome me. And I've never been one to want to like deal with feelings because I always felt like too much, Like I think a lot of us come here and we don't know what to do with them. And I think a lot of people in general, like feelings are like a lot, and people, they're intense, and people feel it feels like something that's gonna suck you under and like drown you, right? But feeling my feelings is and learning how to do that and learning how to like be present with myself even when I'm really uncomfortable has been one of the greatest gifts of recovery. And it's really taught me that like nothing is permanent. Nothing. Like the only constant is change. And if you're feeling hopeless and helpless and worthless, you will feel differently. You will not feel like this forever.
My old sponsor used to tell me, don't make a permanent decision off of temporary feeling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I just want you to know when she said hopeless, she was looking at you. Go ahead, though. Season 1, episode 1. Don't forget about it, homie.
Okay. Jackass. The name of this podcast is No Matter What.
Yes.
It's our last question. Okay. So, what does no matter what, and this is perfect, I think, for both of you guys. What does no matter what mean to you?
It means that I don't pick up drugs, I don't use drugs, I don't hurt myself, and I don't hurt anybody else, no matter what happens. And I say all that because, people that are not in a 12-step fellowship, that do not know the languaging and the terms that are used, maybe don't know what that means. So, no matter what happens in my life, I have made the choice, the decision that I will not be using drugs, I will not be killing myself, and I will not be killing anybody else. No matter what, I have to stay in the present moment, and I have to stay clean, because the only thing that it's going to do is make my life worse, right? Of course, you can always make it worse. Just because I'm going through a bunch of shit, and we are going through a bunch of shit right now. Our baby, we have a 2.5-month-old baby, almost 3-month-old baby. She is having open heart surgery in a few days to fix a heart defect. She's teeny tiny. She's about this big, but 24 inches long and just under 13 pounds, and they're going to slice right through her chest. Sorry to your microphone. And I am not excited for that. I don't want to see that. It's not a thing that I ever thought would happen. There's sort of this feeling that like those things don't happen in real life. Like you always know that these things like theoretically are possible, that when you have children there could be complications. Like children have genetic disorders, they have birth defects, they have all kinds of things, but it always feels like it won't happen to you, right? um, and it's not something I ever anticipated us dealing with, and it's certainly not something that I'm excited to go through, but I know that using would make it worse. I know that she needs her mother and her father to show up and be there with her. I know that her siblings need us as well. I know that my husband needs me, and I know that the one thing I could do to really make this hard situation so much worse would be to use drugs or to like harm myself or someone else. You know, we've I won't say we. I was really selfish for a long time, um, selfish and self-centered, and every thought that I had and everything that I did was for myself. And not that that's never the case anymore, but it is really important that I think of the communal and collective good when I make choices and decisions today.
See, but so I wanna speak on that before we close, right? Like you just said that, right? Our the disease of addiction doesn't give a fuck, right? So, and I brought this up in in one of our podcasts, season one, I don't know when, um, that about the whole fire, the house situation, and me calling you,
Mm. Episode 1.
me and okay, me calling you, right, and on the phone with you saying our house is gone, like everything that we've created is gone, right? And at that time, like it was a blurry vision, you know what I mean? And what you said was everything that we created is in this hotel room, you know? So I think once again, like the disease is constantly trapped in our heads, right? In my head, and shoots always for the negative, you know? Like I mentioned before, it's like the doctor says, oh, 99%, like you dumb motherfucker, I want it to be 100%. You know what I mean? Like that's just like that's just, you know? And so yes, you're absolutely right. That's self-centered selfishness, I think um Rafa's self-centered selfishness is rubbing on me, a little bit hard. Season one, episode one, don't forget to check it out. Um, I love you so much. I am beyond grateful for you. I am beyond grateful for you teaching me um how to be a father, how to be a parent, how to be a husband, how to be, a responsible individual, and you bear with me when I fuck up. You know, I'm not fucking perfect, and you haven't gave up on me, and I do appreciate that. Um, I also appreciate you coming out to this podcast. Um, I know we have 4 kids at home waiting for us to go cause havoc, and I am definitely excited for that. Um, I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Um, if you or your loved one are struggling, there are links down below in the descriptions. If you do not feel like calling someone or an individual or a place in the descriptions, please feel free to write a comment and one of us will get back to you. Stay tuned for another great episode. Peace and love.